Public forum debate is one of the debate formats that will be at this tournament. Public forum is for anyone to go into the room. It is not very technical, and it focuses mostly on being a public debate that anyone from any background could understand. So the focus is really on making sure you know who your audience is and you're able to articulate in a way that they can understand. Much like in a lot of ways presidential debates, where they're going to try to get a broad spectrum of people to understand what their positions are. So in this debate format, the first thing that you as a judge need to do is when you walk into the room, you must flip a coin, asking one team for heads, which is the face, or tails, which is the number of a coin. Whatever team picks heads or tails, whoever wins the toss will get to either pick sides or order. The team that picks sides, let's say they pick going pro, automatically the other team will be con. They get the other decision of being first or second. So a round could look something like the first team picks con, and con might speak first, whereas pro might speak second. It is not determined before you get into the room, so it's critical you do this right away to go ahead and make the rounds flow on time. So after this has been chosen, go ahead and have them write down who their first and second speaker is, and then return to your seat. You'll be timing throughout the entire debate. So before we get into the actual speeches and what is involved here, there's two people on each team. With both of those teams, they both have 2 minutes of prep time to use at any point during the debate, after each speech or before their speech. They can never call prep time during the middle of a speech. They can call it at any time in between any of the speeches. So really, there's 4 minutes up for grabs. The creative debater will make sure that the other team is using all of their prep time before they use theirs, or balance some part of their prep time, maybe 30 seconds, 20 seconds here, 15 seconds here, and most of their time at the end of the debate to prepare their last speech. So that's what prep time is. Now, with the proposition team or either of the teams, in this debate, the first speakers of a debate give the constructive speech. The constructive speech is their case, meaning how they interpret the resolution. So in this debate format, they have 4 minutes that they have to give an introduction, explain what they interpret from the resolution, and any definitions that need to be clarified for us to understand the resolution. Then they will give us 2 or 3 arguments, sometimes more. Usually we say quality is better than quantity, so you'll typically see around 2 to 3 arguments being given by a speaker. Now, one thing that you need to realize is that you are a blank slate when you walk into that room. You cannot bring your own biases or beliefs or understandings or personal knowledge on a topic. What you have to think about is that you are a blind driver in a car in a lot of ways. They have to give you the roadmap. They have to signpost their arguments so you know where you're going to take effective notes and understand the topic. That doesn't mean you have to take an outlandish claim, but if one team makes a statement that you know is not true, but the other team never picks up on that statement, you are not allowed to intervene, because that team can't debate you. They have to debate the other team in the round. So you should never focus on your own personal bias or understanding of a topic to be able to vote for one side or the other. That is certainly a time, though, that you can say this is a missed opportunity, or that they had incorrect information, so that they can fix that for future rounds, but not something that should factor into your decision. So be very clear about that on the ballot. So After the constructive speakers, the first speaker from each team, the pro and the con, they will do what's called a crossfire. And a crossfire is a 3-minute time. Whoever was the first speaker of the round asks the first question to the other team, and they ping pong back and forth, asking clarifying questions or looking for areas of agreement or disagreement within the debate. At which point, they're going to go back and forth. Sometimes this can get really messy. Sometimes people don't know how to articulate questions very well. That's usually a great time to put feedback on the ballot for checking if they're doing questions like, so don't you think, versus who, what, where, when, really clear questions that use that time effectively. After they're done with their 3 minutes, your second speaker is going to get up for the rebuttal speech, or what I like to call the response speech. They should be defending their side and advancing their arguments. They should also be attacking the other team. It should be very clear where they are at in their speech. So they will want to signpost everything. On their first argument, they said this, but it's wrong or not important, bringing some type of evaluation to that specific argument. It should be specific for you, so it's easy for you to take notes through the arguments. Your notes should look something like this, where you can write an argument down, you can attack the argument, and then write the defense, because it will be very clear the thought and argumentation. One of the things I always say is that kind of like the argument or their case is like a castle, and their castle will be attacked. This is kind of a cute way that I give to debaters. So we've got a knight here, that will attack the argument, and then any type of defense that the other team will bring to give an offensive position. Rather than just being defensive, how can they advance their argument? So that's what the second speaker's entire job is. Sometimes you might see a second speaker give an additional argument. That's okay too, but the majority of speakers will focus on attack and defense of their arguments and the other team's arguments. So this is where the majority of the debate happens. This is really where we have the focus. Many speakers will come in with a pre-prepared constructive speech. It might be very monotone, or sometimes it's completely written by their coach. So this is where you'll get to see whether they understand the topic and can articulate it for themselves, rather than just the understanding they had outside of that debate room. You want to be thinking about, are they able to engage the debate in the room versus the debate they had at home or in their academy or school in preparation, because those debates look much different and are different every round. After these speeches have been done, then we go into another crossfire time of just the second speakers doing the same thing, clarifying or searching for areas of agreement and disagreement, even contradictions that they might make between speeches or in their questioning time. Now we go to the last two speeches. In these speeches, they're very short. They're only 2 minutes. The first speaker gets back up and does a summary. Now, a summary does not mean we had 3 arguments, they had 3 arguments, okay, thank you. The summary speech should really focus on the points of contention or the clash. What were the issues in the round? In the world of the pro and the world of the con, how were those worlds advanced? What do those worlds look like? What are the impacts if you vote for the pro side versus voting for the con side? This is really critical, because this is where you'll be able to see what are the main points of contention and what are the main themes coming out of the debate, might be a word they use, but really the articulation of what's going on in the round. And that's a really good opportunity for you to take some good analysis of the debate. It's not over here. You really want to pay attention to these speeches. Now we get into the grand crossfire, and the grand crossfire is where all 4 speakers get to ask questions back and forth. This is where you can see teamwork between partners, one partner asking a question and another answering, or if it's just one partner answering and asking all the questions. This will be a good indicator of how you can evaluate the speaker points that you'll give at the end of the round, but also the poise and how they handle the overall interaction with the other teams. It can get very messy in this part, so those that are the more poised speakers or better debaters, you're going to see stronger argumentation or articulation of their points in this point. The last part is their last shot, and this is the second speakers, and it's called the final focus speech. The final focus speech should really be why our team is winning. Instead of the summary speech where it was focusing on both things and the world of the debate or the rejoinder, why our arguments are more important, this is focusing on how we, one, prove the resolution or disprove the resolution true, and in areas that we did that critically, what were our most important arguments, what arguments were never responded to and why they're so important, why the impacts of our arguments are important, and more importantly, why the other team is losing. And specifically how they don't meet their burden or they don't disprove what you're doing within the round. So this is typically how an entire debate functions. Just one thing to note is you want to be taking notes on the back of your ballot, which is the paper that you'll receive. We want to see that you can follow their arguments, and if there's any point of dispute where they come and say, oh, the judge wasn't taking notes or the judge didn't understand our arguments, I can verify what you were taking throughout the round and having very specific feedback. So that leads us into the ballot. The ballot is where you're going to write your reason for decision. So we call it the RFD. The RFD is really important that you're specific. You don't want to say something like, had really good arguments, everyone responded really well, and you were all good speakers. That feedback can be applied to any debate round or any speech. You want to focus on being very specific, which is why notes are so important, such as your argument on increased economic development through trade was the most important argument in the round because you brought this piece of evidence. And when you were questioned about it in the crossfire, you were able to even bring further levels of analysis and advance your position that really proved the resolution true. Con side, in order to win, you should have done X, Y, Z, or just because you attack this one part of their argument or this definition doesn't mean you win the entire round. So you want to think something like argument weighing. How did they weigh the arguments in the final focus and summary? What was most critical that they brought up? How did they attack and defend their case? Outside of just the constructive could be beautiful and flawless, but it's these other speeches where they're kind of unprepared that you're going to find where more of the debate really happens, because debate isn't a speech. It's about the discussion and dialogue that is created. So that refutation and rebuttal, which is attack and defense. And then were they clear? Were they clarifying where they were? Like on our first argument, on our second argument, were they signposting our first argument is, or their argument is wrong because, or that doesn't prove that we lose. Being really clear in that is important in a speech, and especially in debate, because you can't go reread an essay that they've written or read their constructive speech. You only have the speech that they've given. So they need to be giving those vocal cues in order for you to progress clearly through the speech and know where they're at. The last point is, do they meet the burden of the resolution? They should be showing that they meet any of the points of contention in that resolution, like if it says increase or decrease, that they're showing how